Hey, in this lesson, we're going to be constructing a website project. So taking what we learned for positioning, we're going to position a sidebar navigation on the left-hand side using a fixed position, and then also on the right-hand side have our content section. So let's begin, and I'll give you a quick example of the project that we're working on. We're going to create a brand new HTML file as well as a brand new CSS file, and then link to those. So this is the project that we are going to be working on. The navigation bar is going to be sitting on the left-hand side, and the content is presented in the right-hand side. The font that I'm using is going to be the Google Ubuntu font, so you can include that in the project as well, or you could select your own font style. The navigation bar on the left is about 20% of the page. Content is about 80%. And you can have varying colors for the navigation bar. So pause the video here, and I'm going to walk you through the solution coming up. And the colors and fonts are optional in this design. Let's start out by updating our HTML so that we have the right containers. And for our sidebar, we're going to place it within an A side element. And then within the A side element, we'll have our hyperlinks. And they're just not going to link out to anything right now. And then within here, you can have as many hyperlinks as you want. So typically these types of websites are designed for if you've got quite a few links, and it's going to show the links on the left-hand side. So in this case, I'm going to create about 3 links. And of course, you can add in more as needed. And then we also have a content area. So I'll give this one a tag of section, and then a class, and this is where all of our main content is going to sit. So I'll give it a class of content, and then we can have our H1, and then some paragraphs with content. I'm going to steal some of the content that we have in the index file so that we've got some more robust content available there. So let's go into the browser and check it out. So that's our basic web page structure, and now we need to move a few things around in order to produce the effect for the website that we want to do. So let's first start by linking it to a style sheet. And the style sheet is also a file. Let's create that brand new file. So this is just going to be a regular style file, and I'll call it side CSS. And we'll link to it from the index file, linking to where the style sheet is going to be located, and using the link tag, rel, and this is going to be style sheet. And then for href, select the style sheet that we just created, and then type can be text CSS. That way we're linking to the style sheet, and now we can open the style sheet and make the updates that are needed for the page. So going into the style sheet, and I'll select the element just simply by the tag name, so A side, and this is where the navigation items are going to sit. And we'll also create the hover effect over the hyperlinks that are contained within the A side. So let's give it a height value, and the height is going to be full height, so 100% height. And then let's also set a width, and I'll set the width to be 20%. And so this navigation bar is always going to be in the same spot, and we also want it overlapping and covering on top of the content. So let's set its position, and we're going to set it to have a fixed position. So that means that this side menu, even if we scroll down for additional content in our content area, it's always going to be present. It's always going to be sitting there on the left-hand side. So let's also specify the position. So top position and left position as 0. So it's going to put it in the top left-hand side corner. If you want to move it in slightly, you can also position it, so 5 and 5. So we're not going to be sitting exactly in the corner for that content. And not a whole lot to see quite yet. Let's give it a background color. And I'll give it a background color of red. And then using Z-index, let's just make sure that it shows above the rest of the content on the page, because this is the navigation bar, so it's going to be super important for the users to be able to see it. Now selecting the hyperlinks that are contained within a side, let's give them a background color, and I'll set them to be dark red. And we'll take text decoration, so we'll remove the underline, so text decoration none. Display it as a block element, So it takes up the full available width. So let's see what this looks like so far. So there we've got our elements. And we also need to space them out better. So let's add in some padding because they're fairly crunched over to the left-hand side. So I'll add in about 20 pixels of padding. So that spaces them out better, and they're a little hard to read, and they are on a dark background. So let's set the color of them to be white and refresh. So there's our links. If you want some spacing between them, you can set the margin. Let's first add in a margin of 0 for top and bottom and left and right for 10 pixels. So it's going to create a margin on the left side as well, and top and bottom margin of 10 pixels as well. So top and bottom are the first number, and then left and right are the second number. So if you only have the two values there. So that can spread out and it makes them look more like clickable buttons. You can also center the text if you want. So using text align center, that will center the text. And setting up a font size so that they're nice and large as they get displayed on the page. So notice that the content is being overlapped by the side menu. So let's update the content, and we can handle this by updating where this content position is by updating its margin. So let's go back into our page, and I'm going to actually duplicate so I've got even more content so that there is an overflow on the page. So we've got a lot of content there. We're scrolling, but the navigation bar stays in place because this is fixed within the spot on the website. Now let's look at the main content area. So that's within the section with the class of content. So make that selection of the element that we want to apply. So it's actually content. And we'll start by adding in a background color. So do a beige background color for it and just refresh. So now it's got a beige background color. We also need to account for the side and as well as how much we need to shift it over. So let's position it, giving it a margin. So this is going to be a margin on the left-hand side so that it's not going in underneath the side menu content area. So we do have a width of 20%. So if we set the margin left to 20%, we're still going to be slightly off because we moved it in by 5 pixels. And we also want to be able to have a little bit of a buffer space on the side. So within the content area, we'll set up a margin left in general, and we'll set this to 30 pixels. So we've got margin left, and also let's add in the box sizing. So that usually typically fixes any of the sizing issues and the calculation issues. So box sizing, and set that to the border box and refresh. And so it still looks like we still need to move it over. And actually it was margin left and I need to do padding left. So that was the problem there. So padding left of 30 pixels. So it looks like it's moved the web page and it looks like it's handling that properly. So also, if you want, you can move the navigation bar to 0, 0. So maybe that is a better way to do it for the calculations since we're using percentages, not pics. So oftentimes it's a little bit hard to calculate that. So set that up to 0, 0, and now it's going to be flush within the top left-hand corner. And now we've got our content available on the page. I also want to add in some padding in general. So padding at the top of the content. So if I was to do padding, it would actually overwrite the padding left. So let me specify the padding at the top that I want to have and moving it down slightly so that we do have that padding at the top of the page before the content starts to be presented on the page. So now we've got the content showing, we've got the side navigation bar showing, we also have the side menu items. Next, let's take the A side and add in the pseudo class of hover so that we can give an indication to the user that this is a clickable link. And typically it's going to just be the background color that is going to be changed here. So set and update the background color, and maybe I'll just make it black. And the font color is already white. You also have an option to change that. So I'm going to change that to be actually red. Let's see what that looks like. So now when I hover over those, we get the effect where it's being it's being hovered and it's changing. So that indicates to the user that these are now clickable links. So also within the content area, so let's select the content and all of the image tags that are within there. I'm going to force a default width of them to be 100 pixels, where we want to have the overflow of the content for the paragraph, who's the parent. So once again, select content, paragraph, and we'll set the overflow of the paragraph elements to visible. So that provides us more spacing for the images that are contained within the content. And then as a bonus challenge, go over to the Google Fonts and select a really nice font. The one that I'm going to be using is the Ubuntu font. So I'm going to select the default Ubuntu style and get the embed code for the Ubuntu using import to import it into the project. And then I'm going to set the default, so place it right at the top. And then for the body tag, I'm going to set the font style, and that's the font family from Ubuntu. So that will apply to all of the content that I have within body. And also I'm going to set the font size to be 16 pixels as a default size. So that's it. Now you can take the content and customize it as you need. And because we use percentages, it also resizes.